Well, good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is looking forward to a very nice weekend, a relaxing weekend. We're getting close to Memorial Day weekend, which is the beginning of the summer. I always loved the month of May because living in New York, it was really when the good weather started. We used to get, it could be cold in April, and we got the April showers, which was nice. It started to warm up a little bit, but we also had snowstorms in April, believe it or not. But May really began to really be nice weather, and then we had Memorial Day weekend, the official send off. I always loved that holiday weekend. And then May 27th is my birthday, which normally falls on the holiday weekend. So I'm king for a day on my birthday. So it's just a nice month, especially living in New York. And then, as far as the fall is concerned, September is a great month in New York also. It starts to cool down a little bit. We have Labor Day weekend, which is a fun holiday. And then we start to get into the fall and winter months. So, and it's always nice weather in September also. So, anyway, I gave you my 2 cents worth of the weather map for New York. But really, it's a good weekend. I am leaving for Texas in a couple hours. I have a speaking engagement at Rise Church in Abilene, Texas. If anybody's out there and close by, want to come and say hello and hear what I have to say, we certainly invite you, and you're welcome. And before we get into today's topic, I also want to mention that we're giving this 7-day free trial for anyone that wants to join us for our reinvention. I'm going to talk about how we reinvent ourselves. And obviously, many of you people know that I've done that to myself from, being in the mob and now being a father and a husband and a leader in certain ways and a businessman. It's been an interesting journey. But how does one reinvent themselves? We posted that and we got so many comments that said, boy, we really needed to hear this. I posted a little video on YouTube and gave the 7 steps on how I believe anyone has to reinvent themselves. And the response was really overwhelmingly good by many people who commented on it. So click on the link, get a 7-day free trial to see the program that we're offering. I am going to be heading it up. You'll hear a lot of me on that because I guess I'm almost the poster child for reinvention. Many of us are out there, but I'm certainly one of them. So jump on. We're also going to have a webinar on that on the 20th. But anyway, jump on to our free trial. I guarantee you're going to like it. There's no question about it. And if you don't like it, you jump right out. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, but I think you take a shot at this. I know many people can use some advice on how to reinvent themselves, how to change their life, how to transform themselves. It's very important, people, especially if you're stuck in a rut. You can't do this alone. You need somebody to help you, and that's what I'm all about. I've been doing that for the last 30 years, and quite successfully, I might say. So please jump on. I want to help you. I really mean that. So jump on the link right now. We'll mention it again throughout, and I'd love to meet as many of you as I possibly can. So, what are we going to talk about today? A couple of things are happening that pretty eventful week, I would say. Number one, I just want to address something really quickly. James Comey, former head of the FBI. Understand what that position is. One of the most powerful positions, if not the most powerful position in law enforcement. That's the elite law enforcement agency in the world. And James Comey was the head of it. James Comey also prosecuted organized crime. He went after some of us when I was on the street, no question about it. Well, it just so happens that James Comey was meandering, walking down the beach yesterday or the day before, and just happened by chance to come across shells that were neatly arranged to say the following: 8647. Now, for those of you that might be super straight and never heard of the term 86 before, which is you're probably in the minority, but 86 means to axe something, get rid of something, delete something, make it go away. It could also mean to assassinate someone. And so 8647, everybody knows that Donald Trump is now the 47th, the 45th, and 47th president of the United States. So Comey just happens to come across 8647, and he posts it on his Instagram account. And then when people told him, what are you doing? That can lead to an assassination attempt on our president. That's what it says. Comey says, oh, I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it meant. That's the former head of the FBI that used to track organized crime guys, that was the supreme law enforcement agent in the world, and he had no idea what 86 means. 86 means. You know, if you believe that, you believe in Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and you know, the good fairies and everybody else combined. That's nonsense. He knows exactly what it meant, and he posted it on Instagram. And now he wants to say he didn't know anything about it. And just so happens, you know, the crazy things, he just so happens to see that as he's walking down the beach. Now, understand, he hates Donald Trump. Donald Trump fired him. Comey was the guy that went along with Clinton's BS, a whole plot that she put together with this Russia, and Donald Trump. Clinton started it. She's the one that started it with the dossier. She did it all. Comey gave her a pass on it, basically. He hates Donald Trump. But this is all done by chance. Except for this. If you go down on his Instagram, a couple of slots down there, you'll see that he has another shell. And in that shell, it was around the election day, it says vote Harris. So he does these things with shells. But he didn't do the 8647, according to him. Do you believe that? I don't believe that. You know, what is it with these people on the left? They want to continue to incite violence. They want to continue to, call for violent acts, violent rhetoric. They're all doing it. All of them. People in Congress are doing it. AOC is doing it. Now you got Comey doing it. These people that, burning up Teslas and letting people off the hook for burning up Teslas, during the George Floyd things, it was summer of peace when people were dying, businesses were closing, fires in the street, cops getting thrown out. They called it a summer of peace, if you remember. These people are bad people. And Comey should be held accountable for this, really, because all this stuff starts at the top. And then you get these lunatics on the bottom who listen to it and they actually commit these acts of violence. Remember, there's been 2 assassination attempts against Trump. What is Comey thinking? Is he a child? How could this guy ever have been in charge of the FBI? What a fool. What a clown. But you know what? I hope he's held accountable. Department of Justice is going to investigate it. I understand he had a meeting with the Secret Service. They interrogated him about it. We'll see what happens. But you can't get away with this kind of stuff. If this was you or me, we'd be locked up. Guaranteed, as a threat against the President of the United States. No doubt about it. Why should he get away with it? The Democrats keep harping on this. Nobody is above the law except themselves. Clinton above the law, Obama above, they're all above the law, except, they accept themselves. But all of us, we suffer consequences for this. Why should he get away with this? He should be held accountable. This was very public. He posted it up there for a reason. He claims ignorance. This is nonsense, and I hope he's held accountable. Let's see what happens at that point. Let's jump to the Diddy trial. Man, I got to tell you, my question is, how did this guy get away with this for 20 years? His, former girlfriend got on the stand, and the things she testified to with regard to these freak-offs, I don't even want to repeat. It was so disgusting what this girl went through. Really, it was horrible. These freak-offs were just disgusting. I don't know how else to put it. And if 1% of what she said about Diddy is true, what this guy used to do to get himself off sexually, it's just disgusting. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't relate to stuff like that. And I'm sure many of you listening don't either. But what he put this girl through was just disgusting. But here's the question. Is it criminal? They read some of the text, the defense, when they cross-examined her, they read some of the texts, and it seems that she was going along, that she was a willing participant in all of this. Now, when she testified, she said she did that because she was in fear of him, because we know he beat her up. We saw the tape. He beat her up several times, according to her, and I think that's credible, no question. So she could have been in fear, and as a result of being in fear, she wrote these texts to make him understand that she was going along with this so that she didn't get beat up or she didn't, suffer consequences as a result of resisting. So this is really bad stuff. But my question is it criminal? Were these consenting adults? Did they all do this consensually? I don't know. I don't know. I think that's that's going to be interesting when the defense puts on their case and they're going to say, yeah, he did all of this, but it was consensual. Everybody agreed. They were all invited to these freak offs, and they all agreed to engage in the kind of behavior that they engaged in. Consensual sex by willing adults. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting, trial all the way through. It really is. But it's disgusting. And my question is, how do you get away with this kind of stuff for 20 years? You're right out there in the open. You're very public. There's going to be high profile people that were involved in this, like the Epstein matter. Will we ever get the names of who was truly involved? Who knows? These people have power. They're able to cover things up. So who knows if we'll ever really find out who is involved in this and how it could go on for 20 years. If you or I, did something like this, believe me, we get busted pretty quick. This would be broken up quick. But this guy, because he's a billionaire, because he has those relationships, it goes on for 20 years, these freak-offs. And, look, I feel for this woman, no matter what, I feel for her. She was a young girl. She was, 17, 18 years old when she met Diddy. And, he had this Svengali effect on her. There's no question about it. So, I mean, I understand that she might have been so intimidated by him, so afraid of him that she just went along with everything. She also said she loved him. You know what happens, with these young girls. I don't know what happened in their upbringing, If any of my daughters would latch on to somebody like that, I would be, what did I do wrong, And maybe she didn't have a father figure in the house. Maybe she didn't have a good upbringing. I don't know. I don't know what the situation was, but all I can say, it was really disgusting what she went through. Nobody should be put through this at all. This is just disgusting sexual behavior. And, he should be held accountable for that. Where this is going to go, again, I don't know. Is he going to be convicted of a RICO conspiracy? Because that's what the charges are. I don't know. But the government isn't finished putting on their case yet, so we'll see what happens. But it really is disgusting. And this guy he's a pervert as far as I'm concerned. I don't give a darn, who hears me saying this. He's really a pervert to take advantage and abuse a woman like that, a young girl. He should be ashamed of himself. He should get his ass kicked, quite honestly. He really should. That's what I feel about it. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Let's move on to the Menendez brothers. They had a hearing last week in front of a judge, and the judge was convinced by all the testimony on both sides to reduce the sentence. They were both facing, or they were both serving, I should say, life without parole for the double murder. And he reduced the sentence to 50 years to life with the possibility of parole. Their prior sentence, they were doing life without the possibility of parole. So now they're immediately eligible for parole. They have a parole hearing on June 13th. And they had another shot at freedom if the governor, our governor, would give them clemency. Well, he's backed off of that. He said, let the parole board decide. So this is now really up to the parole board. It's not up to Newsom at this point, although I guess he can jump in at any point in time. He is the governor, and he does have the power to commute a sentence or to pardon someone. But on June 13th, they're going in front of the parole board, and my guess is that the brothers will be paroled. That's what I think. They've done 34 years in prison. They've turned their life around. They've been model prisoners, and they've been model prisoners even before they thought, or they knew they had a shot at freedom. So the question is, there's a lot of questions on both sides. It was a very heinous act. There's no question about it. They murdered their parents, and they brutally murdered their parents. Put a lot of gunshots into them, especially the mom. I think they shot her 10 times. It was a brutal murder, and there's really no justification in a case like that, to commit a homicide like that. There's none. But, there are mitigating factors in everything. And who is it that decides somebody should be in prison for life? That's a man-made authority. It's not God saying that; it's man saying that, and they come up with the accountability and the consequences for such a heinous crime. But then there are mitigating factors. Yes, they did commit murders. Yes, they were heinous murders, but they were young at the time. I will tell you this again. I spent 11 months in solitary confinement in the cell next to Lyle Menendez, and I believe that there was abuse. I think he was in fear of his father. I think he was resentful of his mother for not interceding in this sexual abuse. And I do believe that that was a mitigating factor in the murders. I really do believe that. Both boys were sexually abused. So that's a mitigating factor, number one. Number two, they've now done 34 years in prison. That's a long time. They went in their 20s, they're now in their 50s, mid to late 50s. They did a long time in prison, and they have managed to turn their lives around. They were model prisoners. They helped the other inmates. They did a lot of good things while incarcerated. So the question is, do you believe that they would ever commit a crime like that again? I don't think so. I really don't. I believe this was a one off for them. Praise God for that. But I don't think so. And I think that's a strong consideration when somebody is going to be paroled. The parole board decides, have they been rehabilitated to the point where they would never commit a crime like this again? And I think in their case, based upon all the evidence that's been submitted from prison guards, from other inmates, from the family of these people, of these two men, rather, I think there's really no chance of them committing a crime like this again. So when you put all these mitigating factors together, should they be granted parole? And my answer is yes, I believe that. Now, I've read a lot of comments. I've done a couple of videos talking about my relationship with Lyle, and there have been comments both ways. There's a lot of people that say no, they should never be let out of prison. They committed a heinous crime and they deserve to serve life in prison without parole. They took a life, and they should, in some circumstances, they should be they should not be free. They should be suffer these consequences. And I understand some people feeling that way. They don't know the entire story, and maybe they just say, hey, you know what? I don't care. You committed murder. You don't deserve to be free ever again. That's the consequence of your actions. I've read a lot of comments like that. I've also read a lot of comments that are supporting the brothers. So, I'm not the final judge of this. I've given my opinion, and I say what I believe. I think the mitigating factors and the fact that they probably would not, in 99% chance that they would not commit a crime like this again, I think they're entitled to parole. And I hope that they get parole, and I believe that they will. I think there's enough going in their favor that they will. I'd love to hear what you have to say. In the chats, I'm gonna take some comments from both YouTube and Rumble. I'd like to hear what you have to say about Comey, and I'd like to hear what you have to say about the Menendez brothers. Now, I want to move on to Donald Trump. People, this comes down to the whole Trump presidency comes down to common sense. Which side of common sense are you on? I'm going to talk some specifics, but I want to do this. A lot has come out this week. I don't know if you've been on top of what's coming out about Joe Biden and the interrogation or the sit down that he had with Special Prosecutor Hur when they were investigating the classified documents that Biden had at his house during the time that he was vice president and even senator. Both times, he wasn't allowed to take those things. Only a president can take classified documents. But he took them out both times. He committed a crime. Hur said this. The special prosecutor said he absolutely committed a crime because he wasn't allowed to have those documents. And there was a three-hour sit down questioning by Hur with Joe Biden. If you remember, during the Biden presidency, we tried to get the entire transcript of that interrogation, but the Department of Justice, blocked it. Merrick Garland, he wouldn't let it come out. And why wouldn't he let it come out? Because it showed how feeble and how dementia-ridden that Joe Biden was. He couldn't remember that we're getting these documents now. We got it now. It's being released now. He couldn't remember when his son died. He couldn't remember specific dates about anything. This guy was gone. He was gone, really gone. He really was. And the transcript now shows it. But they covered it up, of course. And let's understand this. They've been covering up Biden's inability to be president ever since he became president. Before he became president, if you remember during the 2020 campaign, what happened? They kept him in the basement. They shielded him. They knew that he couldn't stand up to scrutiny. They understood it. They knew it, but they hid it because other people around him wanted to get rid of Trump so bad, and they knew that they then could be the power in government. So they pulled away. This is the biggest scam ever played on the people of the United States. We had a president that was a president in name only. We're finding out all of these things. You know, the auto pen on all of the executive orders that he signed. Who's really making these decisions? We see now that he wasn't capable of doing that. This her investigation and this her sit down and questioning proves that. He wasn't in control of his senses. He had a very poor memory. Remember what her said. He's guilty of this crime. He should not have had these classified documents. But I don't recommend prosecution because the jury would see him as a feeble old man with a poor memory. Quote, this is our president. This is our president, a feeble old man with a poor memory. This is the most powerful position in the world. This is the man that's supposed to be protecting this nation. And he was a feeble old man with a poor memory. And they covered it up. The media covered it up. It's coming out now. Jake Tapper, who was one of the people leading the charge to cover up the president's inability to perform, he now wrote a book and he's saying it all. And he's blaming the White House. It was the White House that covered it. Well, it was, but anybody could see it. We all knew it. It wasn't the debate. We seen him falling up the stairs. We seen him walking around like a zombie. We knew that he wasn't in control, but they kept covering it up. Why? Because they wanted to maintain power and control. Said, you know, I don't form opinions until we hear all the evidence, until the defense has a chance to put on their case and hear their side of the story. My perspective on this now is, without judging his guilt or innocence, his behavior for me was deplorable. It was disgusting. I couldn't even picture my daughters or somebody close to me going through what this gal Carrie had to go through, being so young, and being, the girlfriend of somebody like Diddy. I think it's disgusting. He should be ashamed of himself for what he put that girl through. And I mean that. So disgusting, despicable behavior. These freak-offs were despicable. That's my view. They found 1,000 bottles of baby oil, the government found, and all this other stuff, paraphernalia. If he was drugging people, if he was getting off by watching people have sex, it's disgusting. And I think everybody on here agrees with me. The question is, was this done by consensual adults? Was it criminal or was it consensual? That's the question that we're going to have answered during this trial. And hopefully it'll be presented in the right way so that the jury comes across with the right verdict. The other question is, how does he get away with this for 20 years? I'll tell you what, if he was in our neighborhood back in the day and we knew about this, it'd been done, been over. One girl, one young woman in our neighborhood had to endure anything that this guy put forward, he'd have been through. It'd have been over. I'm telling you straight out. Would have never happened. But let's see what the outcome of the trial is. The Menendez brothers, June 13th, their parole hearing. Nobody has really commented on that. Do you believe? And you can email me. You can jump into the family. michaelfrancis.com/family. Jump into the family and comment about these things. Do you believe they deserve to be paroled? Or do you think that the crime was so heinous that they should never be paroled? I want to hear what people have to say. We like hearing people's perspective on this. So, I didn't see any comments about this in the chat, but that's okay. We don't have to go through that now. My position is I believe that they have rehabilitated themselves. They've done 34 years in prison. There are mitigating factors, that being one of them, that they have reformed themselves, that they have done all that prison time, that there was sexual abuse, that they were in fear of their father. I think that they should be paroled, and I'm rooting for it. And I hope that that happens. And who knows? Maybe if they do come out, I'll have a chance to sit down with them. It'll be interesting. And now with Donald Trump, his visit to the Middle East, I think, is greatly beneficial to America, both financially and just politically. Very, very beneficial. And look what he's doing. He's talking again about the Abraham Accords. He's talking about bringing peace to the Middle East. He's bringing these people back to America, where Biden pushed them towards China and Russia. This is so vital, what he's doing. This is historic. People on the left won't give him an ounce of credit for it. Not an ounce of credit. It just goes to show you, and I'm going to keep saying this, who is really working for the American people. For the American people. It's Donald Trump, and right now it's the Republican Party. Let's do this. Let's see the Department of Justice. Let's see what they do with James Comey for putting that horrible rhetoric on Instagram like a child, making believe he doesn't know what 8647 means. Absolutely he does. And he should be held accountable for that, like you would be held accountable or I would be held accountable. You make a threat to the President of the United States, you're arrested for it. You're held accountable. I was in jail with people that made threats to the President back then. You get held accountable for this. Why is Comey any different? The party that keeps saying nobody is above the law continues to see themselves be above the law. We have to put a stop to this. We have to hold those accountable. Biden's family, they participated in him peddling his vice presidency. It was a treason act. He pardoned them all. Pardoned them all. Before there was even, charges brought against him. Preemptive pardons. Who ever heard of this? Adam Schiff, biggest liar in Congress. There are many, but he's the biggest. The whole Russia gate. Preemptive pardon he gets. And now he speaks up. All he ever talks about, go on, look at his Instagram account. All he ever talks about is Trump. Anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. He doesn't do anything for the benefit of the people. Nothing. California's in shambles. He does nothing. He's like AOC, does nothing for his state. Like AOC did nothing for her neighborhood. And look at that. I would love to post that article. The worst district in all of New York State, maybe in the entire country. 70% rise in crime. She doesn't even visit it. She doesn't care about the people that elected her. She's going around the country trying to be president. And she'll do nothing then either. She's a socialist. She's got to be exposed and outed, and I'll keep talking about it too. No good. Bernie Sanders, the same thing. These are hypocrites. They're phonies. They're millionaires that want you to struggle under socialism as long as they can live a luxurious life. Bad people. People, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again next Saturday for sure. It's going to be Memorial Day weekend. This is going to be a crazy week, I'm sure. A lot of things leading up, and they say this is going to be the biggest travel Memorial Day weekend ever. That's what they're predicting. So people, have a good time, but we'll talk before that. And how do I always leave you? Even on a live, it's going to be the same way. Be safe. The country's becoming safer. Praise God for that. Be healthy. I think our health food czar, our health czar, I think is doing a good job. He's getting rid of all these harmful dyes and everything else. He's going to make America healthy again. So be safe, be healthy. And yes, God bless each and every one of you. And I really mean that. I like to say that. I want God's blessing on all of you. I want God's blessing on your neighborhood, your communities, and your families. And yes, God bless America. God bless Donald Trump and his whole administration. And God, we ask you, okay, to guide them in the direction that will be a benefit to our country and to the world. That's it for today. See you next time. Take care.